Hello, my name is Cynthia Hill, and I'm obsessed with reality television. And many of you might also be obsessed. So, what if I told you a story that dates back over 50 years that is just as riveting as modern reality television? We all love a glimpse into the lives of the rich and the famous, and this is exactly what Truman Capote gave us in 1975. That year, he published an excerpt from his book, Answered Prayers, to Esquire magazine, called Le Cote Basque 1965. Vogue claims that this excerpt turned Truman into a social pariah because of the drama and the scandal that it unleashed among New York City elites. I don't want to make any accusations, but I think we've all been part of some drama or gossip that we're not exactly proud of, and this story is proof of just how damaging that can be. Today I'm going to tell you the story of Truman Capote and his explosive excerpt from his unfinished novel, Answered Prayers. First, I'm going to tell you about Truman's literary successes and his life leading up to the release, and then I'm going to tell you about the secrets revealed and the drama that followed. And lastly, I'm going to tell you about how the scandal led to his descent into substance abuse, alcoholism, and even his death. Truman Capote was a famous author in the 20th century. He was a gay man who was born in New Orleans. He moved around a lot with his mother until she committed suicide. And then he ended up settling with his grandma in Monroeville, Alabama, where he met Harper Lee, who became his mentor. According to the Encyclopedia of Alabama in Adulthood, Truman and his partner moved around a lot, but his biggest inspiration was New York City. This is where he wrote the iconic novel turned movie, Breakfast at Tiffany's, starring Audrey Hepburn, and then he went on to write the famous novel In Cold Blood, which is a murder mystery thriller. While living in New York City, Truman had befriended many of New York City's most famous socialites. He was invited to all of their events and all of their galas because of his humor and his personality and all of the gossip that he seemingly had on everyone. His close friend group included Babe Paley, Lee Radziwill, CZ Guest, Slim Keith, and Ann Woodard. Aside from having powerful husbands, these women were all very famous in their own right. Babe was the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine. Lee was a famous interior designer and sister to the Jackie Kennedy. And CZ was a famous model who you might know from this iconic image. At this time in his life, Capote's career was on hold. He was in disagreement with his publisher, who had been financing his lifestyle in hopes of receiving a new novel. And to avoid being sued, Truman had to write a book. So Truman made a choice. He began writing the book Answered Prayers, which is a not-so-fictional novel about New York City socialites. The story follows an author who moves to New York City and befriends very many famous women. The book seems to be a mirror of Truman's real life. He called the women in the book his swans because of the glamour and the classiness that they represented. Although he changed some names, the women in the story closely resembled his real-life friends, and so did the scandals. He wrote about the women's drug and alcohol abuse. He wrote about how Ann Woodard allegedly murdered her husband. And he wrote about their relationship issues, their financial issues, and issues within their personal life. The most damaging secret he revealed was about Babe Paley. Babe was his most beloved swan. She was beautiful, classy, and known to everybody in the city. She was married to the CBO of CBS, Bill Paley. Truman wrote about how Bill cheated on Babe throughout their marriage with numerous high society women. Le Cote Basque was released in 1975. in a 3-chapter special published in Esquire magazine, When the women caught wind of the article, they were shocked. They knew that Truman had been working on a novel, but they had no idea that it was going to be about them. They felt betrayed, as Truman was their closest friend. They completely cut him out of their lives, wouldn't invite him to anything, and if they saw him in public, they ignored his existence. The fallout from Esquire made Truman feel completely alone. His health was deteriorating, and he turned to very many unhealthy vices, including drug addiction and alcohol addiction. The exile from New York City and the pressure of having to release this novel made Truman go to some dark places. According to the New York Post, Capote ended up dying in the Bel Air home of his friend, Joanne Carson. He died of liver failure complicated by multiple drug intoxication. He was 59 years old and died a lonely death, and he never ended up finishing Answered Prayers. All that's left in the novel is what was published in Esquire magazine. His homes were searched for the missing manuscript to no avail. Many think it was destroyed before his death. Today we talked about Truman Capote and his unfinished novel, Answered Prayers. We talked about his literary successes before the release and the drama that followed and that ultimately led to his death. The infamy of the scandal was inspiration for many books and even a TV series. As entertaining as it is to talk about drama and gossip, I hope this story makes you think twice, because it might cost you everything.